And, she's a nice one. She's gonna eat good.
One of the most poorly understood concepts in deer management is buck-to-doe ratios, okay? You hear all sorts of crazy stuff, like people talking about, area I hunt, we got 10 does for every buck. Okay, first we need to define what a buck-to-doe ratio is and when it's taken, okay? I don't care if you want to look at it as every single male to every single female, or if you want to look at it every 1.5 plus male to every 1.5 plus female. You have to look at it one of two ways, either of those. Which one is irrelevant? But I would suggest looking at it from a 1.5 old standpoint, because frankly, when you see that fawn out at 300 yards, you have no idea whether that's a buck fawn or a doe fawn. Whereas you see that 1.5 old out at 300 yards, you know what? You know that's a buck. Same on trail camera surveys. It's a lot easier to pick up 1.5 olds than it is nubbin bucks, okay? But what you can't do is it is not fair or accurate to go ahead and take all bucks 1.5 old and older versus all non-legal antlered deer, because you're not comparing bucks to does. You're comparing 1.5 plus old bucks to all the other deer. So you have to do it one way or the other. Next, when the scientists are talking buck-to-doe ratios, now I am generally talking post-hunt myself, but when scientists do it, they're talking pre-hunt. That's before any of us go out into the woods. And I want you to all do just a little simple experiment for me. Take a piece of paper, write down 10 does. Each one of them are impregnated. Okay, that's year one. Each single one of those does are pregnant. For the sake of our discussion, now this isn't entirely accurate, but it's close enough. Every single doe is going to give birth to twins. One doe fawn, one buck fawn. So after birth, you have your original 10 does, you have 10 doe fawns, and you have 10 buck fawns. You can go ahead and run this out year after year after year after year. Each year, take all the does that are alive, make it so they have one doe fawn, one buck fawn, and kill every single buck in your little calculation. And you know what? Every single spring, you're going to come right back to a 2-to-1 buck-to-doe ratio. I know it's a little bit of a silly exercise, but I'll tell you what, it is impossible to have a pre-hunt 10-to-1 ratio. Heck, it's impossible to have a pre-hunt 5 does to every buck ratio. Almost all of the entire habitat out there has, going into season, somewhere between a 2 does to every buck to 3 does to every buck. Pre-hunt population. If you're comparing 1.5 olds and up, or you're comparing all males to all females. Now, by the end of season, can that ratio be in the 10-to-1 range? It can, but I'll tell you what, even then it's pretty tough, but it can. The whole key to understanding buck-to-doe ratios is to really understand that A, you truly have to compare bucks to does, males to females, or you have to compare all 1.5 plus old animals to each other. What you can't do is compare, oh, I saw 3 bucks and I saw 28 different deer that aren't, no, your ratio is not right around 1 to 9. To understand buck-to-doe ratios, you really need to first define it, which virtually no one does. That is, you must compare either all males to all females, or you must compare all 1.5-year-old plus males to all 1.5-year-old plus females. Okay. What you can't do is compare. On the buck side, you have to be 1.5 years old. On the doe side, anything without antlers count. No, that's not right. Okay. It's not accurate. Next, when you hear buck-to-doe ratios from the scientists, they're talking about pre-hunt ratios, not post-hunt. By the time you get to post-hunt, you can have really, really whacked out buck-to-doe ratios over the off season up until fawn birth in the spring. Okay, but the beautiful thing about nature is every single spring we get a complete reset, and that also resets our buck-to-doe ratios.